reunion in 50 years. Hwangbo. A Koryo Air flight took off from Sunan Airport in Pyongyang at 10 a.m. on August 15, 2000, carrying 100 North Koreans. Among them was Jong-gu Park, a distinguished scientist who gazed forlornly out of the cabin window at the columns of billowing white clouds. His thoughts wandered to his home in South Korea, a place he hadn't seen in 50 years. Seated behind him was Mrs. Sunki Lee, his mother-in-law, who was eager to reunite with her own relatives in South Korea. As the plane entered the clouds, Jong-gu caught a glimpse of his reflection in the windowpane, his bald head, gray sideburns, dark eyes, and prominent nose set between his cheekbones. He closed his eyes, reminiscing about his youth, particularly the day Suni, his fiancée, bid him farewell at Pusan railway station. As the train chugged away, releasing a plume of steam from its whistle, Suni, wearing a beige blouse and persimmon-colored skirt while clutching a yellow parasol, waved to Jong-gu. Jong-gu snapped out of his reverie, wondering how Suni was faring now. Will Suni recognize me at first sight? He retrieved her poetry book with its worn cover from his briefcase and read Sol's poem, Unforgettable. He couldn't help but recall his mother's last words, "Son, take care of yourself and return home safely after your studies in college." Soon enough, the plane was cruising westward into international airspace over the Yellow Sea before heading toward South Korea. In less than an hour, it began its descent over Gwanghwa Island in Incheon Bay, eventually touching down at Gimpo International Airport in Seoul. The Russian-made Ilyushin Tu-62 jet marked a historic moment as the first North Korean passenger plane to fly to South Korea since 1950 when the Korean War began. The passengers, all originally from South Korea, finally set foot on their homeland soil. They made their way through the welcoming crowds, boarding limousine buses bound for the South-North displaced family reunion at the Grand Walker Hill Hotel in Seoul. Along the journey, Jong-gu saw people waving and holding welcoming signs, and he enthusiastically waved back. As he caught sight of Mount Buchan rising majestically beyond Seoul, the capital city, he finally felt the warmth of being home. Gazing at Mount Buchan through the bus window, Jong-gu's mind raced back to those days of hiking with Suni and his brother Juno to the White Cloud Cliff of Mount Buchan. He recalled how he and Juno had assisted Suni in conquering a large rock. It felt like a lifetime ago. As he observed his silver-gray hair in the window's reflection, he couldn't help but wonder how Suni had aged. She must be an elderly woman now. Will I even recognize her? Jong-gu's heart swelled with joy as he spotted the restored Han River Bridge, once the sole connection between Seoul and its southern districts, which had been destroyed during the Korean War. He noticed a dozen new bridges spanning the river, and the streets were clogged with bumper-to-bumper traffic. Jong-gu recognized Mount Namsan at the heart of Seoul, crowned by a television tower, but little else seemed familiar to him. The bus passed the Olympic Stadium, constructed for the 1988 Seoul Olympics, located on Olympic Boulevard along the Han River. Despite the incredible transformations in Seoul, the concrete high-rise apartment buildings along the river seemed stark compared to the natural beauty of Pyongyang's Daedong River. Jong-gu searched for the sand dunes and willow-lined trails of Duk Island, where he had taken strolls with Suni. He could only spot a few willow trees along the dikes, behind a moving riverboat whose speakers resonated with a love song, "Nothing is better than the loving mind," in the hazy river air. He yearned for his first love, Suni, with whom he had shared his first kiss within the shade of a willow tree. He reminisced about their days chasing goby minnows in the shallow river, the sensation of hot sand beneath their bare feet, heated by the scorching summer sun. Lost in the memories of those summer days from 50 years ago, the bus finally arrived at the Walker Hill Hotel. They were greeted by a banner proclaiming, "Welcome South/North displaced families." Cameramen and family members rushed to the entrance to extend their warm welcome. Jong-gu scanned the crowd, searching for his mother, Juno, and Suni. "Jong-gu!" Juno's voice called out, recognizing Jong-gu by his towering height and distinctive features, a light brown face framed by white hair. Jong-gu was dressed in a white shirt with no tie, paired with a dark brown suit. He rushed towards his brother, arms wide open. "Juno!" "Yes, brother," Juno exclaimed, embracing him tightly. Their cheeks brushed against each other, dampened by tears, as they held each other close. "Jong-gu, I'm so relieved to see you alive," Juno choked out. "So am I. Where's Mom?" Jong-gu inquired, his voice trembling with emotion. Juno led Jong-gu to their mother, who was seated in a wheelchair. This sight caught Jong-gu off guard, and he dropped to his knees, enfolding her in a heartfelt hug. "Mom!" he exclaimed, tears streaming down his cheeks. His mother turned to Juno, puzzled. "Who is this man?" "It's brother Jong-gu," Juno clarified. "Who?" Mom, this is my older brother, Jong-gu Park, Juno spoke louder. Where is my grandson, the Air Force officer, she asked Juno. He's on duty, Juno replied, then took a sheet of paper and wrote Jong-gu Park in large letters. He showed it to his mother, who read it slowly and said, Jong-gu Park, he's my son. Yes, Mom, I'm your son, Jong-gu Park, Jong-gu affirmed, pointing to his chest with his finger. His mother studied his face intently and asked, Jong-gu? Where have you been for so long? I'm sorry, Mom. I've finally come home. His mother, gently caressing his cheek, said, Jong-gu, my son. Have you really come home? Yes, Mom. I'm here. Thank God you've come. They clung to each other, tears flowing freely, finding solace in their shared sorrow. Junyu wept silently. Mom, you must have endured so much distress because of me. Especially since your father passed away many years ago, his mother confessed, I thought of you often. Please forgive me for being an undutiful son. Now, I am ready to die. Mom, please live a long life. Well, let's live together for a long time, she murmured to herself, wiping tears away with her sleeves. Yes, Mom, we will see many more days like this, Jong-gu assured her, holding her hand tightly. When she eventually drifted off to sleep in her wheelchair, Jong-gu gently rested her head on the headrest. When Jong-gu regained his composure, he finally inquired of Juno regarding Suni's whereabouts. Oh, Suni will join us shortly, Juno replied, but I must forewarn you, she has changed. She waited for you, Jong-gu, for 2 decades after your departure. Eventually, she embraced the life of a Catholic nun. What? She became a nun? Jong-gu exclaimed. Yes, she is now Sister Sophia of the Benedictine sisters.
As Juno elaborated on what had transpired, a nun approached, clad in her white habit. Jong-gu's tearful eyes locked with the serene gaze of Sister Sophia. Overwhelmed, Jong-gu rushed toward her, coming to a halt before her, and uttered, Suni. Welcome home, Jong-gu. I'm truly glad to see you again. Suni, no, I mean sister. Jong-gu grappled with the implausibility of ever rekindling his love for Suni. Can you truly forgive me for returning now? I prayed to God for your return, and God has answered my prayers. You've come back to us alive, and for that, I am deeply thankful. She extended her hands to Jong-gu, who knelt before her, tenderly kissing her hands as he held them. I've missed you so much. Tears suddenly streamed down her cheek, falling onto Jong-gu's white hair. Sister Sophia placed her hand on Jong-gu's shoulder and spoke, Jong-gu, many years have passed since the war. We've endured through difficult times, but now, we stand at the threshold of reconciliation. Let us forgive and forget the past, embarking on a new future. Sister Sophia, yes, we are old now, and this world is no longer ours. But I hope to reunite with you in the next world. Until then, I cannot forget our youth. Jong-gu clung tightly to Suni's hand, reluctant to let go, until Juno returned and reassured him, saying, Jong-gu, take it easy. You will have the chance to see Suni again before you depart for North Korea. Reluctantly, Jong-gu released Sister Sophia, his gaze fixed on her departing figure as she moved toward the hall's exit, as if afraid to miss a moment of her presence. At that moment, Yuna Son, Jong-gu's cousin, welcomed him with a bouquet. Jong-gu. Congratulations on coming home. Thank you, Yuna. You look even younger than the last time we met. They exchanged cheek kisses, holding each other close. Jong-gu had last seen Yuna in December during the North-South music concert at the Bonghwa Theater in Pyongyang. After her performance, she informed Jong-gu that his mother, Juno, and Suni were living in Seoul, South Korea. Filled with joy, Jong-gu had applied for the North-South Displaced Family Reunion for the year 2000 in Seoul, and his application had been approved by the North Korean Red Cross. Jong-gu, how was your reunion with Suni? Yuna inquired. I was so overwhelmed with joy that I thought my heart might burst, Jong-gu replied. Here's some exciting news. My husband, Huni Seo, one of the missing from the Nakdong River battle, returned home last July after 50 years in North Korea. What? Huni is back home? Yes. He managed to escape from the Aoji camp in North Korea and made his way to Yenji, China, from where he boarded a Chinese fishing boat to Jeju Island, South Korea. What an incredible story! Jong-gu exclaimed. Yes, indeed, Yuna smiled. You both must have endured unimaginable hardships for so long. Of course, but who can make up for the loss of half a century? As Jong-gu considered Huni's life in comparison to his own, he couldn't help but reflect, I grew up in the same village as Huni, who spent 50 years in a labor camp, while I was treated as a distinguished scientist at the Kim Il-sung Research Institute.
The following day, each of the North Korean visitors had separate meetings with their South Korean relatives in a hotel room. Jong-gu and Mrs. Sunki Lee were sitting at the breakfast table when Juno wheeled his mother into the room. After exchanging warm greetings with his mother, Jong-gu introduced Mrs. Lee, saying, "Mom, this is Mrs. Sunki Lee, my mother-in-law." His mother was taken aback but visibly pleased. "Son, you're married? When did this happen?" "I married her daughter 40 years ago. Do you have any children?" "Yes, we have a son and a daughter." "Why didn't you bring them along?" "Sorry, Mom. They couldn't get time off from work," Jong-gu explained. Mrs. Lee extended her hand to Jong-gu's mother. "I'm so glad to finally meet you, Sadon, my in-law." "Oh, Sadon, welcome." Jong-gu's mother beamed, tears welling up in her eyes. "How is your health?" Mrs. Lee inquired. "I'm fine, but my hip bones were broken when I slipped on the stairs." "I'm sorry, who takes care of you?" "I have a nurse's aide who looks after me at the nursing home." "May you live long enough to see your grandchildren." "It would be wonderful if I could see them before I pass away," she said, wiping her tears with her sleeve. "Yes, you will," Mrs. Lee reassured her. Jong-gu then shared family photos with his mother and Juno. They appreciated pictures from Jong-gu's wedding and of his children. Among the photos was one of Jong-gu wearing a doctor's hat alongside Professor Sunki Lee. Jong-gu's mother smiled with delight as Jong-gu sang, "Mom's love is as warm as the sun's rays in the springtime." Jong-gu asked his mother if she'd like to try standing with him. "Of course, let's give it a try." With Jong-gu's assistance, she slowly rose from her wheelchair and attempted to walk but ended up falling into his arms. It reminded Jong-gu of his childhood, and how safe he had always felt in his mother's embrace. Later, when Jong-gu entered the meeting room after lunch, Huni Seo warmly grabbed his hands. "Jong-gu, welcome home." "Ah, Huni, how have you been?" Jong-gu asked with excitement. "Well, I spent 40 years in North Korean labor camps and worked another 10 years at an orchard in China. I'm sorry for all the hardships you endured, but I deeply respect your resilience in returning alive. It's a remarkable stroke of luck for you to reunite with Yuna again." "Jong-gu, you may say that, but I can't help feeling sorry for you. You've come home after 50 years, only to have to return. I can't escape my fate. Let's have some wine and continue our conversation at the hotel restaurant." The following morning, Juno joined Jong-gu for breakfast at the hotel cafe. "Did you sleep well?" he greeted Jong-gu. "Yes, Juno. I woke up early and took a walk in the garden." "Why is this hotel called the Walker Hill?" The Hotel Sheraton Walker Hill was named after General Walton Walker of the U.S. 8th Army commander to commemorate his service during the Korean War. He tragically lost his life on his way to the front when his jeep collided head-on with a South Korean civilian truck. He was en route to deliver the news of a Silver Star Medal to his son, Captain Sam Walker, who commanded an infantry company at the front. "That's a heart-wrenching story," Jong-gu remarked. "Yes, indeed. I've heard that the North Korean visitors are planning to visit the Lotte World amusement park today. Is there anything special you'd like to see?" "I'd rather visit the Engineering School of Seoul National University, SNU, if that's possible." "I'm not certain if you can visit the SNU campus. Do you happen to know if Professor Shim is still teaching there?" "He retired this year and holds the title of Emeritus Professor. He and I worked at the Applied Chemistry Lab during the Korean War," Jong-gu explained. "When did you go to North Korea?" "I went to North Korea with Professor Sunki Lee when the North Korean forces retreated to Pyongyang in September 1950. "Did Professor Lee go to North Korea voluntarily?" "Professor Lee, as Dean of the Engineering School at SNU, had to cooperate with the North Korean forces." "Why is Professor Lee referred to as the People's Scientist in North Korea?" "He made a significant contribution to North Korea by developing Vinylon, a synthetic fiber, from limestone and carbide." "What kind of research have you conducted at Kim Il-sung University?" My research has focused on the development of synthetic rubbers from coal and acetylene for use in shoes and automobile tires. You must have made a substantial contribution to the people as a distinguished scientist. Thank you, Juno. How about your studies after graduating from SNU? I have been involved in supporting South Korea's communication and broadcasting satellite program. Last year, we successfully launched KoreaSat-3 into a geostationary orbit. Congratulations on the successful launch of KoreaSat-3, although we don't have access to South Korean satellite broadcasting in North Korea. Hooni Seo contacted me from Yenji, China, after seeing Yuna's performance at the Seoul Music Festival via South Korean satellite program. It's amazing how new technology development has made our lives easier. Jonggu, did you also work on butadiene rubber? Yes, but it wasn't a major study. Isn't butadiene rubber used as solid rocket fuel? Yes, these rubbers can be used as binders for fuels or as plasticizers. Jonggu, you must have been involved in the development of solid fuels for the third-stage rocket of the Deepadong launcher. I can't discuss that. Juno showed Jonggu an article he had written and said, I conducted a study on the performance of the Deepadong I rocket, which was used to launch a North Korean satellite in 1998. Glancing through Juno's article in the SNU Alumni News and Letters, Jonggu replied, there don't seem to be any secrets anymore. You appear to know everything. Not really. How is the progress going with the Deepadong-2 rocket under development in North Korea? Juno asked. Well, that remains a secret.
Juno extended an invitation to Sunny and Yuna for a rendezvous with Jonggu at Lotte World. Sunny had taken a vacation for this home visit and appeared in a beige sweater paired with a white blouse and a black skirt. Juno couldn't help but notice her dimpled cheeks whenever she smiled. Her big eyes, adorned with long lashes, gleamed against her fair complexion. Yuna joined them, dressed in a cobalt green dress. Together, they watched the Talchum mask dance to traditional Korean music at the Folk Museum. Jonggu and Sunny walked side by side. As they observed a Korean traditional marriage ceremony at the wedding hall, Jonggu commented, the bride, with her ornate headpiece and jade ornamental hairpin, looks exceptionally pretty. The groom, in his wedding coat and gat, the horsehair woven hat, appears very handsome, Sunny responded. Our dream might have become a reality if it weren't for the Korean War and the division of South and North Korea, Jonggu lamented. After the armistice agreement between South and North Korea, I waited for a long time, but I received no word from you. I'm sorry for the prolonged silence, but sending mail to South Korea was not allowed. They found a bench and sat down, exchanging the stories of their lives. Juno approached them with tickets for Lotte Adventure from a nearby booth. They strolled through global villages and theme parks, immersing themselves in the customs of each country as if they were on vacation there. At a pub, they enjoyed their favorite ale and sampled German hop beer while listening to Alpine yodel songs. Walking through the Spanish Garden, they indulged in Italian ice cream cones and had fun tossing coins into the Trevi fountain. They savored lunch at an Italian restaurant and then ventured to Disney World, where they relished childlike joy, riding spinning cups and bumper cars. Juno and Yuna hopped on a cable car, while Jonggu and Sunny waited for the next one. As they soared above, taking in the breathtaking view of Han River Park, they exchanged whispered conversations. Sunny, do you see the willow trees way down there on Duck Island? Jonggu inquired. Yes, I see them. In the olden days, there used to be many willow trees, but now, only a few remain. Do you remember us singing songs under the shade of a willow tree? Jonggu asked. Yes, I would love to hear your old song, Der Lindenbaum, Sunny replied. Jonggu sang in a soft voice, Am Brunnen vor dem Tor, des Stedt ein Lindenbaum, and Sunny joined in, Ich trompt in seinem Schatten so manchen Sussen Traum. Do you need to return to the nunnery today? No, I have a vacation until the day after tomorrow. How about dinner with me at the Walker Hill Hotel? Sounds wonderful. Let's see if we can rekindle our good old days, Jonggu proposed. They disembarked from the cable car and made their way to the tour bus in the parking lot. Jonggu expressed his gratitude to Sunny, Yuna, and Juno for the delightful hours and boarded the bus. Juno invited Sunny and Yuna to ride with him in his car to their respective homes.
Lobby, Jonggu met Sunny, who appeared as a slender middle-aged woman, dressed in a beige dress with a green scarf draped over her shoulder. They exchanged hushed words while strolling along a secluded path in the hotel park. Jonggu plucked a red cosmos flower from the trail and handed it to Sunny, who smiled at the flower near her nose. As Jonggu sang, "Flowers bloom in the mountains, flowers bloom in autumn, spring, and summer," Sunny joined in, "Small birds sing in the mountains, they live in the mountains because they love the flowers." They ascended the hill towards the Pizza Hill restaurant, admiring the beautiful clouds in the western sky as the sun dipped below the horizon. Watching the Han River flow from their window seat, they shared smiles and clinked their water glasses. "Do you remember our first date on MT Namsan?" Jonggu reminisced. "We were young back then, just like these young people," Sunny replied, surveying the room. "Do you recall? That was the day I first held your hand." "Yes, of course. We walked on a trail on Namsan. You wore a straw hat, a short-sleeved shirt, and khaki pants. Sunny, you read Seoul's poems to me while we sat on the lawn. Jonggu, you plucked a four-leaf clover and gave it to me, saying, 'Good fortune will come to us.' Our meeting today might be the fulfillment of that promised fortune." "You mean the fortune we waited 50 years for?" Sunny replied, a smile playing on her lips. "I feel a sense of liberation today, freed from 49 years of daily life." Retrieving Seoul's poetry book from his pocket, Jonggu recited a poem, "Unforgettable, you may come to mind, somehow, pass around a world. Yearning for you so dearly, how can my thoughts leave me?" "Is that the poetry book I gave you 50 years ago?" Sunny asked. "Yes, it is. Whenever I longed for you, I would read a poem from this book." As they exited the restaurant after enjoying wine and pasta, the surroundings plunged into darkness, with the full moon shining brightly in the sky. They walked along the path, whispering to each other. "Where is our star among the millions in the sky? Our star must be the brightest one in the Milky Way, representing the union of two stars, the cowherd and the weaver girl. Let's sit on this bench and search for our star," Jonggu suggested, leading Sunny to a bench. While Sunny gazed at the sky in search of the brightest star, Jonggu placed his hands over hers and said, "Our stars are meeting within the palms of our hands." Sunny was touched and sang, "Just stay by me. Time flies with so much to say." Jonggu joined her with a song, "Our meeting was not a coincidence, it was our wish. How wonderful it would be if we meet again in heaven." "I share the same wish, Sunny." "Thank you, Jonggu. We are of one mind. It's for you." Jonggu presented Sunny with a lovely wristwatch, and in return, Sunny gave Jonggu a rosary. From 9 p.m. onward, the singers and dancers of Seoul took to the Walker Hill stage to entertain their northern visitors. Yuna, dressed elegantly in an evening gown, graced the stage with her enchanting voice, singing a love song. The crowd was truly captivated when she performed "Love is Forever." As the applause and cheers gradually subsided, Juno rose from his seat at the table, lifting Huni's hand high into the air, and exclaimed, "Yuna-son's husband, Huni-so, is here." The entire room stood up, saluting Yuna and Huni with thunderous applause and enthusiastic whistles. Huni was guided onto the stage by the helping hands of his friends, and the audience erupted into more applause. Once on stage, Huni took hold of the microphone and began, "I am Huni-so, the husband of Yuna-son. I offer my heartfelt congratulations on your homecoming. 50 years ago, I became a prisoner of war during the Battle of Nakdong River. I was incarcerated at the Konki jail in North Korea when the armistice was signed in 1953. I spent the next 40 years in North Korea, where I worked cutting trees in Mount Baekdu. After 4 decades in North Korea, I made my way to Yenji, China, where I spent an additional 10 years. But with the help of my friend here," he turned to Juno, "I am finally back home with my wife, whom I longed for in my dreams for 50 years. I genuinely wish for joyous reunions among your families. I pray for the reunification of South and North Korea soon, so that you may freely visit your loved ones." A North Korean guest leaped up from the crowd and shouted, "No political statements. We didn't come here for your propaganda. Get off the stage." Several South Korean agents rushed to the stage as Yuna and Huni discreetly disappeared behind the curtain, waving to the audience. The South Korean co-host apologized for the incident and invited the audience to join in singing "A Ri-rang" together. As the show concluded, Jonggu was summoned to the room of Ms. Myung Ryu, the North Korean director. "Professor Park, please explain why you were seated at a table with South Korean individuals." Yuna Son, who performed on stage tonight, is my cousin on my mother's side. I was seated with my mother, brother, cousin Yuna, and her husband, Mr. South. If Mr. So is your cousin's husband, his attendance at the farewell party violated the agreement, which was limited to direct family members and cousins of the visitors. I learned that Mr. So had been invited to the farewell party by Yuna. This North-South displaced family reunion was made possible due to the pure humanitarian consideration of our leader, Kim Jong-il. Please ensure that there are no political machinations from South Korea until our return to Pyongyang tomorrow. Yes, madam. Professor Park, you must write a letter of explanation and an apology by tomorrow morning. I will do so. On the morning of August 18th, 3 limousine buses were waiting in front of the hotel to transport the North Korean visitors to Hwangbo Airport. The North Korean guests were busy hugging their South Korean family members before boarding the buses. Jong-gu kissed his mother on the cheek and said, "Mom, I'm leaving. Please take care." She sobbed, "Son, stay safe. Will we see each other again? I'll come back when traveling between North and South becomes possible. Take these clothes and candies for the grandchildren." "Thank you, Mom. This is a ring for you from my wife." Jong-gu gently placed the ring on her finger. "Please convey my gratitude to her. And bring the grandchildren next time." "Yes, Mom." Jong-gu shook hands with Juno, saying, "Thank you for everything you've done for me. Let's meet again." "Yes, farewell, Jong-gu. Stay healthy until then," Juno replied. "Yuna, be happy." Jong-gu embraced her warmly. "Jong-gu Abba, have a safe trip." "Farewell," Yuna wished him. "Thank you. See you again." Finally, holding Suni's hands, Jong-gu said, "Thank you for coming. I will always love you." "I'll thank God and pray for you," Suni said, her eyes brimming with tears. Jong-gu kissed Suni's hand and said, "Farewell, Sister Sophia." After waving to everyone, he boarded the bus. Jong-gu's mother watched them from her wheelchair at the curve. As the buses slowly departed from the hotel, the South Korean families followed, waving their hands in heartfelt farewell.